Well, hello there, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Carpos Corner. As usual, just some spontaneous thoughts, and it's usually triggered by something that I heard recently. And my brother sent me a picture about a half an hour ago of a picture from underneath the car of a catalytic converter that was painted yellow, and then over that in red said "Get a job." And I thought that was pretty humorous. That was good. It's one I can relate to because I've had my cat converter stolen. We've had our cars stolen 3 or 4 times now, maybe 5 times, don't even know. And finally got smart enough to put a kill switch in my car and a tracker in my son's car, and so we can at least retrieve them or not have them stolen in the first place. But the fact that we have to go to these measures to protect our own vehicles leads you to wonder, just how many break-ins happen. I end up leaving my car unlocked most of the time in the driveway because I'd rather not have a broken window. It's really not that bad in my neighborhood, honestly, but the times when it is, you just, it's not worth it. Just leave shit unlocked, let people do what they're going to do. I am ready to get the hell out of here. I'm ready to buy land, put up a fence and say, get the fuck out. Trespassers will be shot, that kind of thing. I've learned a lot, as I've gotten older, but I've never been an extreme pacifist. Let's just put it this way. I've always believed in defending your property and your safety with any means necessary. I'm not the kind of person who would try to talk my way out of a person who invaded my home. I would have no problem putting them down any way I could. And in fact, if you are willing to walk into someone's home and try to do a home invasion type robbery, you deserve everything you get. And I've seen enough of the people who have done these things and the comments surrounding it, that usually support the homeowner in defending themselves. And there's been kind of a strange change in the way that people view protecting yourself in this country. And I've seen it in the media over the last year or two. People say, well, so-and-so, 3 guys broke into this guy's house and he pulled out a 9mm and shot all 3 of them and killed them. There's nobody saying, oh, you shouldn't have shot these people. The fact is, sometimes it's even teenagers, people making dumb decisions. But the reason why it's happening is because people assume nobody's going to do anything about it. The more people who do something about it, the less of these problems occur. And I feel that very similar to thieves. Home invasion is one thing, but stealing from your car doesn't seem like that big of a victim crime to some people. They think, well, it's not worth hurting somebody over taking your catalytic converter, right? But then there are those stories of the guy who was stealing a catalytic converter and the car collapsed on him because he had it jacked up and he died, suffocating under a car he was trying to steal a cat converter from. And there was one particular story like this where it played it as he was a dad, he had kids, he had a family, and he just didn't have any money. He didn't know what else to do. He'd talked about it for months, but he'd never done it. It was the first time he ever did it, and he died doing it. I still don't have sympathy because I believe in a civil society where you're not stealing other people's shit. Therefore, I don't care how many kids you have. I don't care how nice you are. If you go out and you take somebody else's things or you try to rob other people and you get hurt, I can't help but not feel any empathy whatsoever. A little bit, but it's not much because I've had my shit stolen so many times. I've been violated by other people. I haven't lost my faith in humanity. I still believe that a majority of people are good, a majority of people are kind, and won't wrong other people. But I was talking to my wife this morning about how in the Middle East, in ancient times, they would cut off your hand, or even, at least a finger, if you were caught, say, stealing, or raping, for example. I believe that serial rapists should have their hands cut off. And this sounds so extreme. I know this is probably, you've never heard anyone say this before, and it sounds really obscene. But hear me out here. We're talking people who repeatedly do these things. I don't think a lot of folks realize the revolving door of the system to where a person who is a repeat criminal can have hundreds of offenses and still be walking the streets. There are people up in Seattle, they did a study and they found these 100, and I think it was 120 of the most violent and, repeat offenders is what it was, I guess. Not violent, but repeat offenders, whether it was stealing or anything else. There was 120 people. And within this 120 people, there were over 3,500 crimes committed. Some people had over 120 crimes on their rap sheet, and they were still walking around harming people. Some of them violent crimes. People get released after they actually physically assault a person. And let me just back up for a minute here. I have a vested interest in feeling this way. I was arrested when I was 19, I believe, for growing cannabis. I had a very small garden of these tiny plants. Didn't even know what I was doing. A couple fluorescent lights. Somebody ratted me out, made it sound like I had a bigger garden than I did, and this whole squad of different agents showed up at my door. Basically showed me asked me to come in. I said, hell no, not unless you got a warrant. So then they presented a warrant. At least I knew my rights at 19. But they searched everything I have, confiscated all my stuff, took me to jail. And in the end, there was nothing gained by them. It was just somebody else who ratted me out to get themselves out of a situation. And it took me years to figure out who it was. And it was this guy, Robbie. He had a brother, Davey, and they both lived in Lake Oswego. But I don't want to get into that discussion. There was a bigger point I wanted to make on this. There was the catalytic converter things, the thieves, right? I hate thieves. Anybody can say they don't like a thief. There was a guy busted about 3 days ago. This was on the news here in Portland. Portland, Oregon, not Maine, for anyone who may not think. Of course, everyone knows this. There was a guy who was busted in Lake Oswego. Now, mind you, I grew up in Lake Oswego. From the time I was about 12 till I was about 18. I mean, I ruled that town through my teen years. And we'd go to the park and make a nuisance of ourselves. We knew the cops, all the people. And so it's kind of a small town, but it's a yuppie town. And there's a lot of crime that goes on there. Probably a lot of kind of, white-collar crime, if you will. So this guy was busted the other day after this several-month investigation. He was busted at his home, and they pulled something like 5,000 catalytic converters out of his garage at his rental house in Lake Oswego on the lake, this fancy house. And not only that, they said that he was accused of distributing 44,000 catalytic converters over a few states around this area, and then sending them to New York to be probably melted down, of course, for the metals, the precious metals. Here's the thing, a cat converter can cost upwards of $2,000. The metals in it might only be worth a few $100. But to them, a few $100 per cat converter is worth it. And folks don't realize how easy this is now. In the old days, they would have to get an actual hacksaw, go under your car and hack the thing off. Today, Sawzalls, the power tools that I use at my work as a carpenter, they're battery operated, 20 or 24 volt battery system, about this long with a metal blade on it, reciprocating saw running at a few thousand vibrations per second. You can get through a catalytic converter in 27 seconds and be out of the parking lot. Literally pull up, jump out, brrr, brrr, and you're done. You take it away. How is a person going to be able to stop you from doing that? So because of this, people have robbed entire dealerships of their catalytic converters out here in the Portland area. And finally, at least the current ring of them was busted. But this brings me back to, I don't know, I guess a discussion about what do we do about this, the punishment of people like this. There's nothing we can do. The legal system can't protect us. There's not enough room in jail. People say just send them to jail. They don't realize if you're one of those folks who thinks we can just put these people in jail and that the DA goes too easy, there's a reason for this. We don't have the space in our jails to uphold the laws that we have in place. There's two reasons for this. Number one, Americans are too fucking spoiled and think they can just do anything they want. They don't really hold back. They do dumb shit. We raise dumb kids and we live dumb lives, Just a lot of places do. but they're not so explicit in the sense that there's so much crime going on in America. There's a lot of crime, and there are a lot of guns. That's not going away. But the fact that we have these issues means we have to deal with it. We don't know how to deal with it, so we create more and more jails and prisons. But it doesn't solve the problem. The problem compounds. It's worse and worse and worse. It's like these stupid gun buyback programs. Doesn't help. You can have a few guys break into a gun store and rob 500 guns in an evening, and how's that program working out? Do you think criminals are really returning their firearms? A guy, to make a point the other day in California, they had one of those gun buyback programs where they give you between $50 and $200 per firearm. So this guy he took the time to 3D print something like, I don't remember how many, like a couple hundred guns. 3D print a couple hundred pistols, and then take them down and collect $50 each for them. And he claimed he did it as a way to prove a point, not for the money itself. And I do believe that because, there's easier ways to make money. I mean, this proved a really good point because there was no law in place that said they couldn't buy those back or they could resist it. If somebody brings you over 100 guns and says, I want to sell these for $50 a piece, you have the laws on the books that you have this money for it, that you're going to pay the people. And it turned into a big fiasco, and it was pretty humorous to me. I want to make it clear, I'm not pro or anti firearm, but I do believe in the ability to protect yourself, and I do believe that thieves need to be treated more heavy-handedly, and not by the police, but by you and me, by the people who protect our own property, by not letting people get away with this shit, by making the effort to secure your own vehicle, to secure your own home, to protect your own family, and not rely on the police or the authorities to come bail you out when something bad happens. Because too many people think, if I hear a burglar in my house, what am I going to do? Call 911. If your first thought is calling 911, then you're missing the whole point of protecting yourself. Cops might take 10, 20 minutes to get there. By then, the thieves are through the house. They're in and out. They will find you, and if they have firearms, then, you will be either dispatched or tied up, or maybe if you're lucky, you can scare the shit out of them by putting a few rounds through them. I don't empathize. If you enter someone's home, if someone ever comes through my front door, they should expect to fucking get what they deserve. And I would not rely on anyone to protect me in that situation. At any rate, that's my ramble. I don't like thieves, obviously, and I have a problem with people who take advantage of others. And I think it's kind of a sore spot in our society because there's not a lot we can do in the legal system to deal with it. And I feel like the only way to deal with it is within the communities. That's why people have a neighborhood watch. That's why people have organized gated communities, something I understand a lot more as I get older. Tomorrow the tables could turn and you might need protection. So protect yourself and be smart. And don't think that stealing your car is a victimless crime or, let's say, a non-violent crime. The way I see it is, if I get up in the morning and my car is gone and I can't get to work and therefore I lose money, that's a violation. That's a violent crime. That violates my rights. That violates me. That violates my ability to make an income. And it's not just that. We have a friend, my son's friend, who he played in a band with, and recently he had his car stolen. He had his truck stolen. It just so happened he had his whole life in there, everything. All the tie-dyes he sold stuff when he was out at, on tour, at concerts and stuff. He just happened to have all this merchandise in there. They stole it all. He found the truck. He found people wearing his stuff, called the cops. There was nothing they could do about it. He said he pulled the guy out of the truck when he found him and pinned him to the ground. But then the guy pulled a gun and pointed it at his head. And he just let the guy go, and the guy ran off. And I don't blame him. You never know. The guy was sleeping in his truck. He was nodded off in his driver's seat. So he opened the door and pulled him and pinned him. But then the guy pulled a gun on him, and he let him go. And, who knows if the gun was loaded or not. The point being that criminals are well protected. Therefore, Every citizen should be well protected and well armed to be able to defend themselves against this bullshit. And that's why we have the Second Amendment. And that's why I'm a Second Amendment supporter, even though I don't support the obsession and stroking of guns. I don't care for the guys who go out and buy huge magazines and clips and stock ammo. I think it's moronic. I think it's kind of a obsession for some people. But that's not my thing. I just believe in being able to protect yourself with whatever means necessary from criminals. That includes thieves, because yeah, they're some of the worst. That's my rant, and that's my Carpos corner for the day. I don't like thieves, obviously, and I guess I had to make that point clear. Be well. Talk to you next time. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. And check out Patreon or whatever else, and merch if I have any, and I probably don't, and all that stuff. Bye.